In researching my previous video of my review for this four-player interface for the Commodore 64, I saw right down here where it says you can build your own, or you can look at the source code and get a source code example so you can work on your own project. And there's information on how to build your own interface port if you have those kind of skills. And there's a little bit of source code here that reads the ports. And I wanted to take a look today and see, confirm how this works, and bring it into CBM Program Studio and see if we can do something with it. So what I'm going to do is copy the source, go over to CBM. I created a temporary project called Tinkering, and I'm going to add a new assembly file. Just call it something here, just get started, and then we'll paste it in. Now CBM has a few things that are different. I don't know what assembler this was programmed for, but I know that at least in my configuration, we can't use // for comments. So I'm going to do it. Search and replace, and put a semicolon. And then over here, I'm just going to change this to byte, and then I'm going to have this start at the screen memory, just so we can see it. Just so we can see it, the first 4 bytes of screen memory. And so 0 would be, I'm not sure what 0 is, but 1 is A, 2 is B. I think 0 is the @ sign. And instead of starting off here, I guess we could do it like a new label here to begin the program. We're going to call the init, so just keep the spacing. From what I read on that page, it says that we need to call the init. First, initialize the driver by calling the init function. From then on, you can call the read function to get the values from all the joysticks, those connected to the Protovision 4 Player Interface and the ones connected to the standard C64 port. So it's going to read all 4 ports. It says this implementation only uses the ACCU and stores the 4 joystick status values to the label port. So that's this label right here. All the 4 values have the same pattern for the joystick direction and fire button status. This means that they can easily be checked, for example, in a little loop. Look at the comments in the source code to see how it's done. So we're going to do a little more than reading the comments. But let's just start off by calling the init program, and I think what I want to do is do the JSR to the read, and I think what I'll do is just jump it in a loop and see what that does. And then have the entire program start. Get my keys here. Started at 1000. So we'll put that in screen memory, and then we'll start the program at 1000, 4096 decimal, and see if that compiles. Yay. Okay. Now, I'm not sure just yet how I'm going to get this over to a physical Commodore 64. I'm thinking we'll do the build to file. Give this a name. port scan. So I'm going to copy the PRG from the programs folder to the USB device that I use for the Commodore 1541 Ultimate. Then I'm going to plug the USB flash drive into the 1541 Ultimate and go into the menus. So I'll go into the program folder. There should be a port scan. Let's try run. I don't know what that'll do. Okay, okay. Let's look at the... Let's see it. Let's run it. And do I have a joystick plugged in? I do. It's weird how the... Oh, see, look. The third one. Down, left. And that's physically plugged into third port. Or is that the fourth? I'm not sure. I'm going to plug it into the other one. Ah, this is that last one. Up, down, right, left. This one's a little bit flaky, I think, because it's... Not sure why it's doing that. It's changing values. So that's port 4. The other one was port 3. And plug one into port 1. Port 1 is now plugged in, and press up, down, left, right. I'm going to push fire. It's an O. And I have one more joystick. Disposal. Push fire. Okay, that's that one. That one. So I got two joysticks here. I got a third joystick there. So that's one. I'm trying to press fire on all of them at the same time. Okay, so that's me moving the joysticks around. But it somewhat seems to work. Now, what I would like to do from there is see if I could implement a 4-port, some sort of, not a game, but some sort of system where I can demonstrate this actually working on the screen somehow. So that was the next step in the process. So I'm coming back into the Program Studio, and before I scan through this code and try to figure it out, I'm going to hit F5 and run the program locally. Even though I don't have joysticks plugged in physically, I don't have a user port thing plugged in. I don't have the Protovision port adapter plugged in. See how it still alternates here. So I'm going to go in here and see what that's alternating between. So it's alternating between 1F and 0F. Alright, so I took a few minutes and I went away for less than an hour and I wrote up a program that built upon this port.asm that I started with, which was simply copied from the Protovision website. Now, the first thing I did was the idea was I wanted to have 4 characters on the screen that I could move around on the screen individually and with each joystick. So in order to do that, I thought I would snag this portion of code that I wrote previously in the PatClone series. And what it does is you pass it a value in the accumulator, you load the X register and you load the Y register. So if your accumulator is the letter A or 0, 1, and your X register is say 5, that means 5 positions over to the right, starting from the left side, and then if your Y is, say, 5, that means 5 down. So it will poke whatever's in the accumulator into that position, 5 across, 5 down. Let's run that. Oops. Where'd it go? Let's run this. So as you can see, I have, where is it? Oh. X as a 6, Y as 4, so that means go over 6 and down 4, and then it poked a 0 there because the A is a 30, which is the letter 0. And so that's a good starting point, and it uses this map offset here as simply like a small multiplication table, so you don't have to multiply by 40, just look it up in the index. From there, I went ahead and built out a little program. So I set up some constants at the top of the program for up, down, left, and right. And these are what the actual values are when you push up, down, left, and right, or press the fire button on the joystick. I'm a little concerned about this one because port 4 seems to be firing that off randomly, that value. So what I did was I came in here at the beginning, I initialize JSR the init, then I do the read the ports to see what the current values are. Then I go through and for each one I check to see if you pressed up, down, left, or right. It's calling the subroutine to see if you moved in that direction. If you press down, up, left, right, or you press the fire button. And the first set here is for port 0, or port 1, 2, 3, and 4, all the way down. And then down here, after you've checked to see if you can move in those directions and you adjust the values of the XY positions, it comes down here and then pokes them onto the screen. So your current position gets poked onto the screen for port 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here's the move direction sub. It's just saying compare what's in the accumulator to up. Did you press up, down, left, or right? And so what's in the accumulator, you load port, the first port value is in the accumulator for the first player, the second port value is for the second player, third port value, and so on. So if you moved up, it goes down to up. Now up does a comparison, see if you're already at 0. If you're at 0, then it says exit out. Otherwise, you decrease the player's Y value by 1. If you're down, you do the opposite. Check to see if you're at position 24 already. If you are, exit. Otherwise, increase the player's Y value. And then these two do the same for left and right. Now, at this point, I have yet to implement the fire button, and I'll show that. And the program runs too fast, so I had to have a delay. So I inserted this little sub for a delay, and that's right here. And then it just jumps in a loop, so it just loops this forever. So let's run it. And right now it's not clearing the screen, and we can fix that. So here it sets up, this is player 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is me moving the joystick in port 1. And so I can move up, down, left, and right. Fire button doesn't do anything. If I go all the way down, it stops, and then I can move left or right. Same thing, all the corners. And then I have another joystick plugged in to port 1. So I can test out ports 1 and 2, actually, without having to use the actual Commodore 64 and the player interface, 4-player interface. But I want to make a few more refinements before bringing it over to the Commodore 64, and I did in the next program. So let me close this. So this was, I just called it 1, and this is 2. And then on 3, I implemented the fire. So when you press the fire button, I changed the color. I added a color variable. So each player down here, each player has an X, a Y, and a color. So, and then these are their default values starting out. So I start out each player at 10 positions over to the right, and then on the Y value I start off at each player increment by 1. That's why you saw it said 0, 1, 2, 3. And then I changed. I want to change it so it says player instead of 0, 1, 2, 3. I want to change it to 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's pretty much, so it's almost identical to the prior program. Let's run that. So now they have colors, and when I move around player 1, or actually it's kind of player 2, I'm going to push the fire button. You see it changes color, and I can do the same thing with the player 1. Move him around, change his color. And so what I wanted to do here before quitting was clear the screen. Oops. Yes, let's close this. Say right up here by the init, just call a sub to clear the screen. And right now I have these as constants. I have these constants up here. The player's character is a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3. I want to make those a variable. So I'm going to create a variable down here. Player character. And make 31, 32, 33, 34. And then in the program code, just change these instead of hard-coded values. Just do player character, player character plus 1, player character plus 2, and player character plus 3. Run that. Oh, it doesn't like the hashtags. Hopefully that'll work. Very good. So now they have 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically for joystick 1, 2, 3, or 4. Didn't clear the screen, so I must have the wrong program. Oh, I think I need to load LDA 93. I think that's how it goes. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm not sure. Yes, okay. Now the program clears the screen. Push the fire button. I can control each joystick independently and simultaneously. If I do them at the same time, it's kind of hard to do. Let's see if I can do that up. Okay. Looking at the program, there's not a whole lot of room for tidying up. You could make some of these repetitive type of statements here. You could put them into a macro, but I think for the purpose of this demo today, this is fine. So I'm going to hit save. I may add some comments up here later, but I'm going to save this and then build it to file, and we're going to copy it into the flash drive that on the Commodore 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus. Let's call this one 4-player. Call it 4-player. And I'm going to plug that into the 1541 Plus. Ultimate 2 Plus. See if I can find it. 4-player. Let's load it and run it. Oh, I gotta plug some joysticks in. I got one plugged in over here. Seems to work fine. Let me plug in a couple more joysticks. Okay. So now I have 2 joysticks plugged in. And let's try to run them simultaneously. So where's 4? Oh, 4 is down here. I'll change color. Both go up, both go down, both go left. So these are both plugged into the user port right now. I have a third one I'm going to plug into port 2. And I only have 3 joysticks on me, so let's move that guy around a little. So we could move all 3 simultaneously. I'm going to move it in port 1, from port 2 back to port 1, on the side of the Commodore 64. Which one is it? Oh, there it is. So I've moved all. Can change colors each one. If I had 4 arms or 3 arms, I would do all of these simultaneously. But to me, this is pretty cool. So I don't know. I thought I would share the program. Maybe it can inspire some people to get out there and test out and write some of their own code and maybe make some 4-player games. And I'm thinking of what I could do, but you know how that goes. All right. Thanks for watching.